everyone. Thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandon. Here's what we're looking at. A national civil rights organization is declaring a state of emergency for civil rights in response to the Trump administration. Twin sisters who grew up on the city's south side are making their debut at Lollapalooza this weekend.
Because we are the steppers capital of the world.
And we step out on the floor of the popular Chicago dance style known as Steppin. And now to some of today's top stories. The Illinois Secretary of State says insurance companies are using several factors to decide what you pay for car insurance, and much of it has nothing to do with your driving record.
The horrible, hard truth is that car insurance companies charge you more for auto insurance based on your credit rating, the neighborhood you live in, and your age.
Alexi Janulius is planning 8 town hall meetings around the state to hear from drivers about their experiences with car insurance companies. He's planning to use that public input to create legislation for the next General Assembly to address rate-making practices. But organizations representing insurers argue they are not allowed to use factors like race or income in setting rates, but the other criteria they do use are necessary to determine driver risk. The Chicago Transit Authority leader says the agency's efforts to crack down on smoking are having an effect. CTA acting president Nora Learson told the City Council's Transportation Committee today that the agency has increased enforcement efforts to target smokers.
The anti-smoking missions, which launched in March, are done in coordination with the Chicago Police Department and CTA's security resources. They've occurred 24 times to date and have resulted in the issuance of over 200 citations for smoking and other violations just as a result of those missions.
Last week, Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order to eliminate smoking on the CTA, that despite smoking already being banned on the transit system. And another day to celebrate about a story that we've been following over the years. 2 of the men who have served Illinois' longest wrongful conviction sentences at 42 years are tonight holding their official certificates of innocence.
Feels a sense of relief, but it's been too long coming. It should have happened a long time ago. I think we had about 7 or 8 court days before this happened, and you know, it's kind of hard going into the very courtrooms where David and I received an injustice to try to get some semblance of justice. And it's just like I said, it takes so long for that to happen, and there's so many people in the same situation. It should be a better process.
David Ayala and his cousin, Jimmy Soto, were both exonerated about a year and a half ago of the 1981 murders of 2 teens on Chicago's southwest side. While in prison, Soto was among the first cohort of men to earn a bachelor's degree from the Northwestern University Prison Education Program. Since their release in late 2023, both men have been working as advocates for the wrongfully incarcerated, and Soto plans to retake the LSAT next month to attend law school. Up next, a conversation with the head of the National Urban League, right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, is made possible in part by the support of these donors.
One of the country's oldest civil rights organizations is urging people across the country to resist the Trump administration. The National Urban League's new report, The State of Black America, accuses the federal government of harming Black and underserved communities with federal spending cuts and diversity rollbacks. The group says President Trump's agenda could put democracy and decades of civil rights progress at risk. Joining us now with more is Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National Urban League. Mayor, I'm still going to call you Mayor because you were the mayor of New Orleans when I was a student there, but it's good to have you in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.
So this is an annual report, and this year the plan had been to focus on the 60th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Why the pivot?
We had to pivot because at the beginning of the Trump administration, it became apparent that there was a determination to roll back the progress of the last 70 years. Brown versus the Board of Education in the Civil Rights era changed America profoundly. It changed America for African Americans, for women, for Latinos, for Asian Americans. It changed America profoundly. And it was clear in the first several days of the 47th president's administration that he was determined to roll back that progress through executive orders. Case in point, the attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion is an attack on the Civil Rights Act and the way in which we enforce it and the way in which we follow it. And therefore, you saw something interesting in March. You saw a record number of African American women laid off from their jobs. In last month, you saw the African American unemployment rate tick up while the unemployment rate for white Americans ticked down. These are troubling warning signs of the impact and the effect of these policies on Black America. I think it's so important to understand why this also undercuts American democracy. We value the process of selecting elected officials through the voting process. When you seek to suppress it, when you seek to undermine the process, it is indeed anti-democratic. So we're sounding an early warning signal on these policies. And I would add to that, the big ugly bill, that's what I call it, is going to strip away health care, education, support for libraries, support for veterans across the board. And the impact of that may not be felt today, but it's going to be felt in the fall, in the spring, and in the years to come.
So you talk about those policies. Your report, you make the case for how you believe what were once, alt-right ideas, they go from being fringe to being policy. How does that work?
Well, many of these far-right ideas, like the excessive use of executive power to change policy and ignoring the role of the Congress in changing the laws, is an idea that is sort of circulated in the alternative right or in the far right for years. The idea that diversity, equity, and inclusion is somehow a preference program has circulated in the far right for years. Now it's got a champion in the White House. And these ideas are extremely dangerous because they undercut what I call the general consensus that has existed in this country for years, that we have to make progress when it comes to including everyone in the economic future of America. If we do not, we can't compete with China. If we do not, we cannot compete with India.
You also write that the Black community has been here before in efforts to make progress. For example, after Reconstruction. Say more.
We're strong. After Reconstruction, you saw the right to vote stripped away, the right to own property stripped away. You saw Black elected officials wiped out on a wholesale basis. In the 1880s, there were maybe 25, 23, 24 Black members of Congress. By 1900, there were none. For 30 years hence, there were no Black members of Congress. From 1931 until the 1960s, there were only 3 or 4 African American members of Congress, even though African Americans were 13, 14% of voters in the eligible voters in the United States. Voter suppression, voter discrimination kept African Americans from participating in the political process and thereby having a meaningful chance to run for office. The Voting Rights Act changed that. Now we see an assault on the Voting Rights Act. It's being led by the Supreme Court. The Shelby case, a number of other cases are undermining this very important law. So we have to sign a warning signal, but what I really want people to also understand is we also embrace an alternative vision. There's a vision of America that talks about white supremacy or white Christian ideology. Our vision for America is a multicultural, multiracial American democracy. And that is what is at the heart of this battle, competing visions for what the future of this country ought to be about.
What do you say to those people who might be disillusioned by the Democratic Party right now, especially in the way that they are responding to the current administration?
I think there's a lot of legitimacy in that. I think people want from the Democratic Party, if it's going to be a legitimate opposition force, to be more assertive, to be more aggressive, to be forthright. I don't represent any party, even though I am a registered Democrat. I represent the interests of civil rights and economic opportunity in this country, and that's what we are all about. We approach the entire public policy space by saying we have no permanent friends, we have no permanent enemies, we simply have permanent interests.
The report calls for a, quote, new resistance. What does that look like and how is it different?
It's got to operate on every single front. So there's been 250 to 300 lawsuits filed. There have been many, many, many mass protests in the streets. And these mass protests have not been covered that widely by the mainstream media, but if you follow them online, There are people mobilizing all across the nation. And then there's the 2026 election cycle, which I think is going to be very important, which is going to put these policies on the ballot. So our encouragement now to people is to begin getting registered, to begin preparing. We have to get ready because we're going to need to vote in record numbers. Those that do not support these policies have to make their voice heard at the ballot box, in the streets, online, and also in the courtrooms.
Now, that said, there are those who do support the policies of the current administration. There are, plenty of folks who will read your report and agree with it, but there are a lot of folks who will never read it. And if they did, they would not have agreed with what you all are calling for from the Urban League. How do you reach out to those folks? How do you bridge a divide?
I think that within the Republican Party or within the conservative movement, there's a silent number of people who do agree with most of what we say. And that's because there was a long-term consensus. Look, George W. Bush, a Republican president, signed a Voting Rights Act extension in 2006. Ronald Reagan signed a Voting Rights Act extension in 1982. And I'm not going to say they were aggressive champions of voting rights, but what I will say is that there was a consensus in this country around civil rights, that after 400 years of slavery and segregation, 400 years of slavery and another 100 years of segregation, that somehow 400 years of slavery and segregation, it was important for the nation to move in another direction when it comes to its communities of color and their treatment and the fairness quotient that America believes in. So I just believe that there's a silent group of people, even Republican aligned, who do support this. But here's what the polling shows. The polling shows that the majority of the American people support diversity, equity, and inclusion when they clearly understand it as equal opportunity. They support it by large numbers. If you ask people, do you believe that America's institutions, its corporations, its universities need to do a better job for its employees and its leadership to look like America? The answer is yes. So we feel, and I feel strongly, that while loud voices may be against us, public opinion is in our favor.
10 seconds left. What gives you hope?
Young people, the energy, the animation, the spirit of the young. And the other thing that always gives me hope is the wisdom of the elders.
All right, and from one elder to used to be a young person.
We're both young.
Still young people. All right, thank you.
We're going
to claim it
youth
today. Yes, Mark Morial, President and CEO of the National
Good
Urban League. Thank you for joining us. And we're back with more right after this. Twin sisters Rachel and Nicole Henderson, aka the DJing duo Ray Cola, are about to have a very special homecoming. The Southside natives may now live in LA, but this Sunday they'll be making a triumphant return to their hometown to DJ at this year's Lollapalooza Music Festival. Joining us now via Zoom to tell us more, in Chicago, we have Nicole Henderson, and from LA, but at the airport so she can come to Chicago, the other half of the DJing duo, Rachel Henderson. Thanks to you both for joining us.
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
So,
at the same time.
Yes, you did. You've got that twinergy. We're going to get to that in a minute. So growing up in Chicago, did you ever think you'd be playing Lollapalooza? Nicole, I'll start with you.
Not at all. This has been such a dream within the past few years, but growing up, I wasn't really someone who was going out to festivals and parties and things like that. So it feels very unreal.
Yeah.
Rachel, did you ever attend it?
No, we actually haven't been before. So I feel like it's kind of surreal that the first time we'll be performing.
Nicole, you mentioned that, it's been a dream over the last few years. Tell me about that dream and why it came to you.
Yeah, we started DJing, how long ago? Like 10 years ago or so? And once we started DJing, we had all these dreams of like the types of festivals and things we could play. So this was one that was on the list, but even though it's been 10 years or so, it still felt like such a big goal. So for it to happen even this soon, it's, yeah, sooner than I expected.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your musical style, because I know you probably don't want to put it in a box. It can be a little bit hard to categorize, and we don't want to limit you. But I'm going to use a phrase that I've never gotten to say on television before: booty bass.
Booty bass.
Say more.
Yeah. I mean, overall, we played dance music, house music. Being from Chicago, we have so much inspiration from the sounds that we would hear, even just, you know, on the radio growing up and in the background in different areas. So I would say it's a Jackin' booty house.
Yeah.
It's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
It's a feel.
I think booty bass has always been a feeling. It has like a low end and make you want to move.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you want to shake your booty.
Yes.
I was like, you can't help but move. Like those beats that it's like, you can't stay still. You have to, you know, rock side to side. Your beats happen.
Yeah, not me dancing in my office while I was getting ready for this segment. Don't worry. What do you want your listeners to feel, to hear when they're listening?
I would say connection overall. I think music is something that always can unite us, and just feeling a sense of community is always important to us when we're performing at shows.
I think a lot of our lyrics too are, I like, just inspiring confidence and making people feel like you're not in your head when you're at the show. You're moving your body. You're not thinking too much. It's just like a natural just movement and boost of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Dance like nobody's watching.
Yes.
What are some of, you know, your musical influences? What's, you know, who are your, you know, sort of musical idols, and how do they influence you? But, you know, where else do you take your inspiration?
I mean,
I always think that we're.
You go ahead.
I always say we're Prince babies. Like our parents' first date was to go see Purple Rain, and we grew up just listening to Prince's music. And I'm so inspired by the way that he would perform, the way that he showed himself in such a vulnerable way that, I don't know, maybe wasn't the norm, you know, going outside of the grain. And I think we both kind of move that way as well, always taking risk and just trying to be true to ourselves, even if it's, I don't know, with or without the grain.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Ray?
I was going to say, growing up, we both loved Cashmere / Green Velvet, and his music was always a really big inspiration. And even this past week, we just came from a show playing with him. And it's so crazy when, I don't know, the biggest inspirations that you have, like, can see our talent and want us to perform with them as well. It feels like a full circle kind of moment.
So as we know, you grew up in Chicago, you attended Marist High School, and then you moved to LA to study fashion, actually. How did you end up pivoting to music full time?
I mean, we both were pretty, like, I don't know, shy growing up. I didn't party in high school. I didn't do anything like that. So once we went to college, we were in LA. We had to go around to all these places and try music for the first time, and just fell in love with the club scene of LA and kind of dove head in. Like, we just wanted to learn how to DJ, and once we learned, we just couldn't stop, I guess. I would say. Did you want to add to that, Ray?
Yeah, I definitely think DJing was something that started off as more of a hobby, but it slowly became everything for both of us.
Yeah. How would you say your hometown influences your sound?
I mean, Chicago is like the birthplace of house music, so I feel like there's no way to even be doing this without that. But I feel like from little, like, footwork and juke music, I think has influenced us a lot to even have that kind of like booty bass type of feel. So hearing that growing up in Chicago definitely had a big influence on us, and just like the pioneers of it to begin with. I think hearing their messages and learning ways that we can incorporate that into our music as well.
Nicole, what's next for you all? Lollapalooza, I know you're doing, you know, sort of the festival circuit a bit this summer, but what else where else are we going to see you?
We have some super exciting shows coming up the next few weeks. I'm literally so excited. We have Splash House that we're doing in Palm Springs next weekend, and then we're playing Deep Tropics in Nashville the weekend after, and that's a really exciting one too because we'll get to speak on some panels about the Black Underground, and we're hosting a panel on creating community and playing
So-
two sets there as well. So
Lots of
super
yeah, lots
exciting.
of opportunity for Ray Cola fans then to follow you around the country to see you. Looking forward to your set this weekend at Lollapalooza. Congrats to Ray Cola, sisters Rachel and Nicole Henderson. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we're back with more right after this. Summer festivals are in full swing, and if there's music playing, chances are there's dancing. One of the dance styles you may see is called Steppin, and Chicago is known as the Steppin capital of the world. That's, of course, if you ask the godfather of Steppin himself, DJ Sam Chatman, who's credited with coining the term. And though the dance craze's popularity has spread across the country, no one can do it quite like the hometown originators. We recently explored the local culture and history of Steppin. Here's another look.
I started on the west side, Barbara's Peppermint Lounge, MGM Grand. From there, it just exploded.
Before Steppin became Steppin, it was known as bopping. But DJ Sam Chatman coined the phrase in the 1960s after admiring a friend's moves on the dance floor.
Draper would be dancing with a lady, and I would say, step on Draper, step on Draper. And the word stepping, next thing I knew, I was putting it on a flyer.
Its popularity expanded, and other fellow Westsiders became inspired to host parties to resist the disco era.
We had nowhere to go. So I had this idea that, hey, I'm going to keep our music alive.
A woman fondly known as Black Mary Harris hosted Steppin events for more than 60 years. At 17 years old, she says she became a residential sweetheart for a social club, and the environment inspired her to host her own parties.
We almost got shut down because we had so many people up there.
Before graduating to big venues and clubs across the South Side, Harris and her crew used whatever location was available.
Anybody that had a basement that we could use, we would pay them a certain amount of money and fill out those index cards, pass them out, and had a DJ, and we just danced all night. It took me almost 4 years to get one party off the ground, and look what that party has turned into. We're all over the world now.
Harris says hosting a Steppers event doesn't require much, but a few essentials.
The music had to be off the chain, and the venue had to be bathrooms, good parking, and a good dance floor. Back in the day when we learned to dance, it was always, if the man could do it, I could do it. So you're not going to outdo me. Because if you do it, baby, I'm coming back with it.
Steppin requires a certain skill set.
They practice these moves over and over, and they get them down to, they perfect them.
If he did something and I did something, or if we did it together, it was the blendingness, it was the footwork, it was the mannerism of how you move your body.
And though other cities have adopted Steppin, Chicagoans can always claim the original set.
We are the Steppers capital of the world.
Nobody can do it like Chicago because, first of all, Detroit, Atlanta, but Chicago, we do it 7 days a week, every day, and all of them will be packed.
And in addition to their moves, Steppers always have to bring their looks.
You go to a Steppers event, everybody is sharp. The colors, the outfits, your shoes had to be right, because everybody watching your feet.
And what's more, Steppin provided people with a space to let loose and relieve their worries.
I would tell them when I first started my party, leave all that mess outside. You come in here, free spirit, have a good time. Pick it up when you leave my party.
And even as new dances emerge, Chapman remained confident that Steppin will never leave the dance floor.
Where did I see Steppin going? And I said, we haven't even scratched the surface, because I'm noticing parents and grandparents are teaching their children, their babies, to step.
It's generational, and though it originated on the West Side, of course, we know Steppin is just as popular throughout Chicago. And that's our show for this Wednesday night. You can stream Chicago Tonight on our WTTW YouTube channel every evening and catch any programs you may have missed. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. As violent crime drops in Chicago, anti-violence organizations are sounding the alarm about funding cuts. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm working to preserve the dignity and rights of all individuals.